Hi, Roy here, and welcome to another edition of The Right Has Left. I am your host, Roy Garden, and in this particular episode, we have a ton of news to talk about, and I've also got a lot of videos. So this episode is going to be quite interesting. So having said that, let's go ahead and get into it. First and foremost, Donald Trump said obliterate. He said we totally obliterated everything with the Iran, uranium sites, especially Fordo, and they, of course, used that big bunker buster, 300,000 pound bomb on everything. So the question is, was it totally destroyed? From his point of view, he said it was. And then, of course, he was talking about, they had a peace deal, and then that fell apart, and he dropped the F-bomb. So let's take things as they occurred in the events here. And, so first and foremost, the bunker buster. Now, initially, and of course, as we're going to see in these videos, they, Pete Hegseth and Trump got all over the news networks, specifically CNN and MSNBC, which he can't not pronounce, and was pretty upset. So when the peace deal was made, and then both sides broke that, ceasefire agreement, he went ballistic. So let's look at that video first.
You urge both sides not to violate the ceasefire, but reports coming from the region suggest that the sides accuse each other for violating the ceasefire. So
I think they both violated it. Yeah, I'm not sure they did it intentionally. They couldn't rein people back. I don't like the fact that Israel went out this morning at all, and I'm going to see if I can stop it. So as soon as I get away from you, I'm going to see if I can stop it, okay?
Have you spoken to him this morning? How confident are you that
I think it's been completely demolished. I think the reason we're here is because those pilots, those B-2 pilots, did an unbelievable job. And, the fake news, like CNN in particular, they're trying to say, well, I agree that it was destroyed, but maybe not that destroyed. You know what they're doing? They're really hurting great pilots that put their lives in the line. CNN is scum, and so is MSDNC. They're all, and frankly, the networks aren't much better. It's all fake news, but they should not have done that. Those pilots hit their targets. Those targets were obliterated, and the pilots should be given credit. They're not after the pilots, they're after me. They want to try and demean.
Do you believe that Iran can rebuild its nuclear program?
Iran will never rebuild its nuclear. From there? Absolutely not. That place is under rock. That place is demolished. The B-2 pilots did their job. They did it better than anybody could even imagine. They hit late in the evening. It was dark with no moon, and they hit that target with every one of those things, and that place is gone. But when I see CNN all night long, they're trying to say, well, maybe it wasn't really as demolished as we thought. It was demolished. You take a look at the pinpricks, and you see that place is gone. And I will say, I think CNN ought to apologize to the pilots of the B-2s. I think that MSDNC ought to apologize. I think these guys really, these networks and these cable networks are real losers. You really are. You're real losers.
Israel says that they violated the peace.
You're gutless losers. I say that to CNN because I watch it. I have no choice. I got to watch that garbage. It's all garbage. It's all fake news. But I think CNN is a gutless group of people. And the people that run it, nobody even knows it's been sold so many times. But the people that run it ought to be ashamed. MSDNC, a guy named Brian Roberts, he heads it. He's a disgrace. He's a weak, pathetic disgrace.
Israel says that Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. When I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Now, I have never seen any sitting president intentionally drop the F-bomb. Now, we have seen that happen when on what's called hot mics, where they were talking and they thought they weren't, live with their microphones, and you heard an F-bomb drops. Especially, Joe Biden's done that. But Trump, lashing out and using the F-bomb like that, well, that's never been done. And, of course, he went on to saying how all the fake news of MSNBC, which, he was calling MBSC and MBR, poor guy, and then CNN. So with that particular section, now let's get into what the networks initially reported on. And they kept saying initial reports based on what they were getting. Trump doesn't believe that. And of course, myself being a former news journalist, not on a huge network level, but I have worked for local and regional stations in my lifetime. And my degree is in broadcast journalism, business, and entrepreneurship. So I think I have a little bit of background knowledge of what I'm talking about. So let's start from the beginning. Now, initially, the U.S. military strikes on 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities, which happened this past weekend, did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program and likely only set it back by months, according to an early U.S. intelligence assessment that was described by 7 people briefed on it. The assessment, which has not been previously reported, was produced by the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Pentagon's intelligence arm. It is based on a battle damage assessment conducted by the U.S. Central Command in the aftermath of the U.S. strikes. One of the 3 sources said. Now, this is what Trump was bitching about. This was a leaked early report and it shouldn't have happened. The analysis of the damage to the sites and the impact of the strikes of Iran's nuclear ambitions is ongoing. Again, ongoing, and the network said that, and could damage as more intelligence becomes available could be increased. But the early findings are at odds with President Donald Trump's repeated claims that the strikes was completely and totally obliterated Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities. And Pete Hegseth also said on Sunday that Iran's nuclear ambitions have been obliterated. 2 of the people familiar with the substance of Iran's stockpile and enrichment uranium was not destroyed. Now, having said that, let's go to the next news clip when Pete Hegseth, and he had his a big day in court, and if you want to use that terminology. And he basically said that, hey, you guys in the news agencies are also a bunch of idiots. Yeah, he actually said that. So, the news agencies got it all wrong. They don't know what they're talking about. And I'm here to tell you that you cannot be reporting on things you don't know anything about. Again, in the networks, as I just read from that initial report, verbatim, they said early assessments. They never said that, nothing was totally destroyed. They're just going on their basic, preliminary findings like anybody else. But Pete has to get up there and grandstand and call everybody a bunch of names, okay? Now, in this upcoming video that I'm going to show you, Chief Joint of Staff of, Dan Kane laid it all out. And, of course, he was very thorough about what they, happened and saw. The last and only question that we've got about all of this is, where is the uranium? And, of course, nobody can answer that question. But Pete, Hegseth got really upset. So let's watch this video.
Or bring us to the topic of the moment, the highly successful strikes in Iran. Let me read the bottom line here. President Trump directed the most complex and secretive military operation in history. And it was a resounding success, resulting in a ceasefire agreement and the end of the 12-day war. There's been a lot of discussion about what happened and what didn't happen. Step back for a second. Because of decisive military action, President Trump created the conditions to end the war, decimating, choose your word, obliterating, destroying Iran's nuclear capabilities. I want to read some of the assessments that have been provided, because whether it's fake news, CNN, MSNBC, or the New York Times, there's been
big
fawning
question
coverage.
is on the centrifuges, and were they totally destroyed? Early assessments said they weren't. The general here says they were destroyed, and if they were destroyed, that would set him back more than a few months, obviously. So if he, in fact, has definite proof that the centrifuges at the Iran sites were destroyed, then it's going to take them a long time to get back up to track, if in fact they're going to. But the main thing is the uranium. Was it even in there when the site was destroyed? So, because they saw trucks earlier moving some of the things. And again, Iran knew they were going to be attacked. And Trump kind of said that they were going to be attacked. So, there, even though that happened, everybody's going to be asking, so where is the uranium? The other thing I want to take issue with here is, Pete Hegseth, who is, of course, a talking head for Donald Trump and praises him. This was a great planned attack. I give him credit for that. But when he said that this was the most secretive and most organized planned defensive strategy in the history of the United States, veterans, including myself, are going to take exception to that. I think the D-Day landing from World War II was a hell of a lot more planned in secret and executed than this bombing. That is to take nothing away from the brave men and women. And again, here's something else. Pete Hegseth likes to call the boys and the B-2 bombers. There was a woman, pilot on one of those B-2s. And she's not a boy, but Pete Hegseth again, even though he recognized, okay, we had a woman on the bombing range, so okay, let's move on. Again, you see some sexism there, but again, this was a great executed event. Give them credit for that. The pilots did a fantastic job. Give them credit for that. But to say this was the best executed event in U.S. history, I do take exception for that, because events like D-Day, I think, were a lot more put together than that. The other thing that's going on with this event is Caroline Leavitt. She also went on there as a talking mouthpiece. Of course, she is the president's press secretary. That's her job. But she also went on and said that, the networks had it all wrong. Shame on them. And, they need to be removed. And, the problem that we have here is, is this. Donald Trump has an ego as big as all outdoors. He likes to have full credit and take credit for everything and anything. That's just Donald Trump's makeup. He has a huge ego. The guy is, when he loses, he doesn't like to lose. He likes to win. And whenever he executes anything, it's the biggest and the most beautiful and the most, outlandish thing that it could ever happen. And I did it, and I refuse to lose. And he does everything in his power to make sure that he is shown in a positive light. He wants to control the media, which, we have our First Amendment rights as a person in the media to say what we like to say. It's called freedom of the press. You cannot control the media, and if you do, then you turn into an authoritarian country. And where, Trump would obviously would like to have a state-controlled media like they do in, North Korea and like in Russia. He would be very happy if everything that came out of the media's mouth was positive light. But you can't do that with Donald Trump. He is a narcissist, and that's just his makeup. And I really don't know what else to say. Now, another thing that I'm going to talk about here in this particular program, and I did this on a previous one of my first episodes with The Right Has Left, is AIPAC. Now, AIPAC is the PAC for the state of Israel, and they have billions of dollars. Now, I know a lot of people out there say, well, we have to support Israel, and they try to base it on biblical principles. And I'll give you a one-off on that could be partially true. What a lot of people don't know, and I'm rolling here this website of AIPAC, where they're very transparent. Their goal is to get Congress to back Israel on anything and everything they do. And this is how they do it. And both Democrats and Republicans are guilty of this. As you see this scrolling in the background, they literally give and put money in the pockets of about 98% of our Congress, both in the House and in the Senate. Joe Biden himself is guilty of, taking money from them. But they give a hell of a lot more money to the people who are responsible for key votes of getting defense money to Israel. And if you look at some of these senators, they have gotten more than $1 million. And of course, having PACs is perfectly legal, and because that's the way the Congress has set it up. But it's kind of sad when you see some of these politicians getting, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars put into their pockets so they will vote in support of, putting money and defense money into Israel. And that's money they can spend however they want. They got to report it. But, other than that, if they want to use that money to go out and buy a new Rolls Royce or, a brand new house or a yacht, hey, they can do that. And, folks, that's just, that's pretty sad. So, anyway, please take your time to look at AIPAC and, Israel's PAC for, lobbying the congressional people in our country, and take a look at some of that money that's in the pocket. Now, some of the people, as I said, don't accept it. AOC is one of them. She refuses to take any money and, in her words, get bribed by anybody because she votes her conscience, not how people tell them to do with dropping $50,000 or $100,000 in their pockets. So anyway, take a look at that. So moving on. Now, another person that has done some crazy things is this guy. This is Senator Mike Lee from Utah. And he is buried in the proposed Senate's version of the budget, and they're supposed to be voting on that as I record this noon Saturday, and try to get the bill through back to the House so Trump's big beautiful bill can be intact and voted on by the 4th of July. I don't think it's going to happen. But, when they're trying to take trillions of dollars from Medicaid and Medicare and to screw the seniors, and I've got a video that's gone about that here pretty shortly. But let's get back to Mike Lee. So what is this guy doing? Well, Mike Lee has put into the bill that you're seeing, the great big beautiful bill, and it's buried among everything else in the 197 pages that they got. He's planning to sell more than 3,200 square miles of federal lands that has been, in his view, not needed. And he's going to say that, we can sell this federal land and put it into private development because we're just not really using it. And the way he wants to do that is, and I'm talking about federal lands, folks, that's mostly out west. We're talking your national parks. We're talking BLM, or Bureau of Land and Management land. We are talking about United States Forest Service lands, and some of it has like oil perhaps on it. And by the way, let's just get it out of there and sell it to private individuals. He thinks that's going to help out the the federal budget if you can do that. But what he wants to do there is, he's not getting a lot of support on it, by the way, so that's a good thing. A lot of senators are saying, no, it's going out there a little too far. But if you sell millions of acres to private land and get rid and take it out of the federal use, that's not a good thing. So his little thing about that is you could use it to build low-income housing, which is total BS. And I call BS on Mike Lee on that. That's not his original intention. That looks good on putting it in a bill to try to sell it, but that's not what he wants to do. He just wants to have private developers take some of this land that's close to a national park or forest service and turn it into profits. That's what all the Republicans care about. Profit, 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 millions and millions of dollars. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. That's the Republicans. So like I said, I don't think this is really going to go anywhere, but, that's really what he wants to do with this. So shame on you, Mike Lee. Now, before I move on, I have another video clip that I want to show you, because this deals with, again, the Senate's version of trying to cut billions of dollars from Medicaid. In a recent peaceful protest, and I'm running this video now, these seniors, as you can see here, were zip-tied by the Capitol Police, arrested by the Capitol Police. They are in wheelchairs. It is not a standing joke or a fake. This is real stuff. These seniors are in wheelchairs, and they wanted to go to the Senate chambers and say, please do not cut Medicaid. So, the big stuffed shirt, three-piece suit senators saw the ruckus, called the Capitol Police, and had these seniors arrested and zip-tied. Some of them couldn't even push their wheelchairs because their hands were zip-tied. You can see that in the video. This is not AI created. This actually happened. Now, if you remember last week in my last show, there was an 87-year-old veteran who was zip-tied and not allowed to get back into his walker, where he peacefully was protesting, the cuts to Veterans Administration during the No King's Day march in Washington, D.C. Now, some of you say, well, they're protesting. They broke the law. What the hell do you expect them to do? I expect that certain people with disabilities, especially seniors, be treated with dignity and not treated like they're common criminals. That is BS. Again, we're getting back into this Gestapo type of stuff that you see around here, especially with, these covered-faced U.S. type of marshals with ICE who are arresting anybody and everything. So, this stuff has got to stop. If you ask me. So I don't know. It's just not right that you see this kind of stuff going on. All right. So again, this is all happening with the Senate, and again, they're hoping to do something with it here by this noon Saturday. Now, speaking of ICE and another terrible thing that has gone on is this. Now, this particular woman is her name is Montreso Lemus. She was sent to Ridgewood. She was 4 to 5 months pregnant, and she was detained by ICE and put into a facility. This woman was 4 to 5 months pregnant, according to her medical records. She said she didn't feel that she was receiving the proper care prior to her detention when she was put into to a detention facility. Now, according to medical records, she received an ultrasound in February after going to the doctor for pelvic pain. Doctors at that time prescribed Tylenol and told her to return if she was experiencing bleeding. Now, once she was in a Louisiana detention facility, she said she felt she was starving and that she wasn't getting the nutrition that she needed for her baby, and adding that the food was so poor and many detainees would throw it away other than eat it. She described spaghetti served with tube-shaped ground beef and even cockroaches that were found. She also said she experienced mistreatment and mocking from the guards. Now, Matrosa Loomis said she was repeatedly asked for an ultrasound to make sure her pregnancy was healthy, but she was denied that. The staff simply just took her blood pressure and tested her urine. I told them to just send me back to Guatemala because I would rather be there and pregnant other than losing my baby. Well, the bottom line is she did lose that baby due to not getting the care that she was needed. Again, this is ICE treating all detainees, illegal aliens, people being arrested whether they have criminal records or not, treating them like they're nothing but dirt when they put them into detention. Again, because Trump wants 3,000 people arrested daily, they don't care who they arrest. If they're profiling, let's not. Just how else can you put it? If you have brown skin, you look like you're Hispanic or Italian, whatever. They're going to arrest you, and shoot first, ask questions later, like the old cliche used to be. So, and again, the Trump administration is trying to do away so these people don't have any due process anymore, declaring a national emergency. They're trying to get rid of that. And with the Supreme Court, which I'll get into here in a little bit, giving Trump even more executive power, they may just do that. People can get arrested and you can't even get before a judge. They're just going to block the key and take you out of here. The hell with you. So going back to this woman, she was only given 12 pills to take daily through to try to see that she was sick and not about her babies, but again she lost a child. And now with the Republicans saying that if you can't have an abortion if you lose a child, that's murder. Well, maybe she's got a lawsuit now against ICE if she lost her child because of them. I don't know, but she was finally admitted April 29th to a health center, and they she was having no fetal movement, nothing. The baby was lost. So when they finally got around, maybe we'll go ahead and put her in the doctor's office. Let's just see what happened there. So, again, folks, this kind of stuff, I don't know. This is sad, the mistreatment that some of these immigrants are getting. I don't know how else to put it, because when you get this kind of stuff happening, and they all should get some kind of decent medical care and be able to receive some kind of help if they're experiencing that. But they got so many people now that are put in the detention centers. And they're building more. Again, I'll get into that too in just a minute here in the state of Florida. They don't have any choice but to just lock them up and say, hey, you're on your own. And it's just not right. It really isn't. Okay, let's move on to some more news. And I talked to you about the Capitol Police, and I also talked to you about what's going on with the big, beautiful bill. So the next thing that we want to move on to, of course, is the Supreme Court. And what's going on with the Supreme Court? They just passed on a bunch of rulings, all in favor mostly of the Republicans and the Trump administration. So they have, as you know, if you heard on the news, they went ahead and passed the ruling that federal judges now have very limited powers to and blocking executive actions done throughout the country through nationwide injunctions, which greatly affects how parties seek judicial relief going forward. This was in favor of Trump. Now, he called it, his birthright executive action. That's not quite what that is all about, but he is claiming victory on that. Again, people through civil action through states can still file through mass court action to do something about birthrights. It's going to be on a state by state basis is what it's coming down to. But the court's 6-3 ruling this past Friday with all 6 GOP appointed justices in the majority deals a significant blow to legal challenges against President Donald Trump's extreme executive orders and other actions, many of which have been blocked or temporarily put on hold through nationwide injunctions. That's no longer going to happen. The ruling is an existential threat to the rule of law. Justice Brown Jackson noted that in a dissent, nationwide or universal injunctions prevent the government from enforcing a law, regulation, or policy across the entire U.S., not just against the specific parties involved in the lawsuit, and not just in the districts where they are issued. In a majority opinion written by Justice Amy Coney Barrett, the court wrote that the nationwide injunctions likely exceed the equitable authority that Congress has given to federal courts. The courts also ruled that parents have the right to opt out on any LGBTQ literature if they feel it infringes on their personal or religious beliefs from school studies. And also they upheld this Texas ruling that on going forward, any adult logging on or to a pornography site must provide legal forms of identification and a preventive measure to underage children from porn sites. So, and lastly, the Supreme Court with the South Carolina lawsuit that was filed about using Medicaid funding for abortion was upheld in favor of the state, saying that that was not the purpose of Medicare. So, to kind of give you a synopsis about all this, Trump says that he has a big win for birthrights. That, again, I said, even though he's claiming that, it's not totally true. There are still avenues for states to take on their individual basis. Class action lawsuits, for instance, is still available as an alternative for states if, they want to file civil suits against the executive branch about birthrights for their own states, So what Trump is claiming that was designed just for slaves, for they're born. Anyway, Donald. So that's his interpretation, and he's entitled to it. As for the other things I just discussed about LGBTQ, I'll give that a one-off to families. If they have religious beliefs and that bothers them, they should have the right to opt out about, literature about that. As for porn sites, I support that as well, what Texas is doing. Again, they said it was a First Amendment right violation. I think children need to be protected against pornography, even though in this day and age on the internet, any kid can find, dirty pictures if they want to, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to be able to scrub through and find that. But again, I support that as well. I'm in favor of the LGBTQ, having their voice, but again, for religious verifications, if parents don't want their children exposed to that, even though by the time they're 18 they're going to get into it anyway, that again, they should have that right to do so. So it goes. Moving on, and now we got to get to the state of Florida here, and this is interesting. What you see here in this picture is what's being called Alligator Alcatraz. This is an abandoned airfield. They were using it basically for just testing and stuff. But it's in the middle of the, pretty close to the middle of the Everglades. And, of course, Attorney General James Utmeyer, he was all in favor of being able to have the government use this land, and they took him up on it. And right now it's having trailers pulled on it for another detention center. Of course, James here, he's been under scrutiny, and he's had charges filed against him as well for contempt of court. He is another talking mouthpiece pro-Trumpster and everything, and he'll do whatever he can. Now, going back to Alligator Alcatraz for just a moment here, what's interesting about this is, as you know, Trump has been cutting FEMA funding for a lot of states for disaster relief. However, they are paying for Alligator Alley with FEMA money. So Christy Newman says that's how they're going to pay for this. So she's sucking FEMA money that is supposed to be used for disaster. I guess if you want to call rounding up thousands of immigrants a disaster, that's her excuse to get these facilities built. So there you go. You've got Alligator Alley being probably being able to be used here in just in a couple of months. The state of Florida is taking it one step further. They want to build another detention center just outside of Jacksonville. They think this is just great. Let's just get them all down here. And Governor DeSantis, of course, he is he's all in favor of that. So the site's about a 30 square mile area. It is surrounded by the Everglades, so people just basically can't think they're going to break out there and go somewhere unless they want to get swallowed up in the swamps. But again, here we go, folks. Just like the United States in World War II are rounding up people and putting them in prisons and shipping them out. So it's kind of sad. It really is. So I don't know. You can use your own judgment whether you think this is going to be something that we need to do. So moving on in other news, what else has been happening here in the state of Florida? Well, the University of Florida is back in the news, and I'll tell you why. And that is because of a recent deal done by a certain judge, and it's this guy right here. He's been in the news a lot, but this guy gave a student a straight A, congratulations, and an award for having the best paper on basically discriminating minorities. It was a white supremacist paper, and this judge gave Preston Damsky a huge award for writing that paper. And this is Preston Damsky here. I think he's recently grown a beard, but this guy here, he got a great award from that judge. And that judge, by the way, was campaigning to get appointed by Donald Trump here in Florida. This judge represents the 4th District here in Florida, and he actually wound up getting it. But Damsky, who you're now presently looking at, did get suspended by the University of Florida because he posted a series of racist messages on his X account that included suggesting Jewish people should be abolished by any means necessary. And before his suspension, Damsky had written that paper, and that judge I just showed you gave him a special award. He said that we, the people in the Constitution, should be understood as referring solely to white people, that voting rights ought to be revoked for non-whites, and that shoot-to-kill orders should be issued for criminal infiltrators at the border. The suspension, which the university gave him, prompted an internal discussion at the University of Florida over the limits of free speech on campus. A federal judge appointed by President Donald Trump taught that class, and that was the guy I just showed you. It's just, this stuff, folks, is for lack of better words, pretty disgusting. And I understand free speech, but to write a paper like that and get a special award for it from this judge is freaking disgusting in my opinion. And I don't know where you're going to be going with things like that when you think that you're actually coming out and being wonderful person. And when you are talking about white privilege and being able to say that you're going to do all this stuff and white comes first and everybody else is second. And then you get a judge, a sitting judge in the 4th District area who's teaching this class in the state of Florida, giving this guy an award for, hey, that's a great paper, man. Congratulations. You not only get an A, but I think that's great stuff. And then, of course, Donald Trump recognizes that and he goes, oh, yeah, you're a good judge. You can, I'll get you an appointment here. So there you go. What else has happened in the state of Florida as I wrap things up is Congresswoman, and I'm saying state Congresswoman, she's on the state level, Kat Camerick here. This lady here, she's a staunch anti-abortion Republican and co-chair of the House for Pro-Life Caucus, and she's speaking out about a harrowing ordeal during her pregnancy last year, a personal crisis that was sparked new debate over the real-world impact of restricted abortion laws, which, Governor Ron DeSantis has put into place here in the state of Florida. So it's what happened to her is she needed some help, and she wouldn't get it. She couldn't get it. She had a triple pregnancy. She needed to have that taken care of, and none of the physicians in the state of Florida would help her because they were scared to death that they would lose their license if they did. That woman even called Governor Ron DeSantis, whom she couldn't reach, and saying, hey, I need some help here. And nothing happened. Finally, one doctor relented and, did the procedure that she needed so she wouldn't have her life risk and took care of the situation. But this just goes to show you these Republicans and all their grandstanding about, life and all this. But when it happens to them on a personal level, oh my God, I need some help here. This wasn't meant to be, helping with me in place. But anyway, she got it taken care of. So without any help from, anybody. But, when the shoe's on the other foot, isn't it funny how things change? So, yes. All of us wonderful people here in the state of Florida that have things happen. And then when it happens to them, well, it's just a different deal. So there you go. That's the news this past week. Of course, we're going to have more stuff happen later on in the week when we'll find out what's going to happen with Trump's big, beautiful bill. But, this is, again, my commentary on this. They have had so many people come before the Senate with personal stories, heartbreaking stories. You had those seniors about, all these trillions of dollars cut to Medicare and Medicaid. Seniors, including myself, can take advantage of Medicare. And it's important because you think all of these people who are seniors have this access to thousands of millions of dollars. Everybody has this idea that all seniors have big, huge, fat retirement accounts and that they're living the life, and it's just not true. And, these Republicans who have never had, an adverse thing in their life, or if they did, they had millions of dollars to bail out, they don't give a crap. All they care about is profits, money, and their own bank accounts. And that is showing. And some Republicans actually do have a conscience. They're worried about what's going to happen in the midterms. But again, Trump is saying, I don't give a crap about your midterms. You're here to serve me right now, and this is what I want pushed through. And of course, the Senate version has to go back to the House of Representatives again. And the House, of course, they're trying to cut down some of that spending. And they want to give some, but not all of it. But, it's sad that when you reach retirement age, 65 or 70, that you're just all they care about is that you're put out to the North 40. You can't work for us anymore. You can't. You're not productive. So we don't give a crap about you. Just go out there and have a peaceful transition to the next world, and we'll move on. But the government does need to take care of their seniors. They need to take care of their veterans, and all of that's being taken away. So, folks, you got to watch this stuff very carefully. That's my edition of The Right as Left. I'm your host, Roy Garden. Until next weekend, you try to have a good week. Take care.